Hello and welcome back to How to Survive a Horror Movie, Chapter 5, Fangs of Fury, Aliens and Beasts. Newt. We get back, cause it'll be dark soon and they mostly come at night. Mostly. Alien, 1986. I have to admit, I'm rather fond of aliens and possessed beasts. Unlike some of our clumsier adversaries, there's a certain class to the way they savagely kill. In some ways, it's an honor to be murdered by them. That said, it's an even greater honor to light a victory cigar from burning their corpses. Oh, that's such an... How to survive a an earthquake? Before you even finish that thought, the power cuts out. You open the drapes, letting in the sulfur yellow of the street lights. Then it hits you. But if the power's out, why are the street lights still? You notice the neighbors gathered in their yards, eyes wide as saucers pointing to the sky. A sky filled with yellow lights, and so it begins. Rumors fly, 100 ships, 1,000, hovering over every major city in the world. Tanks rolling through streets. World leaders address their anxious flock. Religious services are standing room only. Heart attacks and attempted suicides wreak havoc on emergency rooms. And then, there you are, wondering whether to stay, go, or swallow that cyanide capsule you've been saving for just such an emergency. Don't be a sucker. It's a movie. Rule that dates the Truman era. When aliens come to Earth en masse, they do not come in peace. Ever. No matter what olive branch they offer in one purple hand, they're concealing a ray gun in the other. You've got yourself the makings of a fine coming-of-age movie. More than one alien, it's a full-scale attack guaranteed. There are only 3 reasons aliens come in groups. Yes, apparently humans are quite the scrumptious delicacy, though you have to wonder, what do they eat back home? Oh, darling, you wouldn't believe how yummy human souls are. To enslave us, to steal our resources. Their planet's almost out of crude oil, so they're here to take it. Joke's on them. To destroy us for no reason. That is, other than the fact that they're total dicks. Dicks who, after eons of evolution, philosophical discussion, and scientific achievement and advancement, have decided that the meaning of it all is to kill. Never trust an alien, not even if they give you the cure for cancer wrapped in the end of world hunger. Don't you realize they're just making sure we're plump and tumor-free? 2. Stay away from the ships. Look, those flute-playing hippies let those flute-playing hippies be the first to feel the aliens' wrath. Oh, look, they're flashing some lights. Aren't they pretty? I wonder what's gonna happen next. Allow me to ruin the surprise. You're gonna be blasted with a Zaxorian Kreblor that turns your bones into hot lava. Loot. You might think that looting is wrong, but when the ships begin firing, you can drive over to the local megastore and wait patiently for one of the cashiers to show up for work. And why, when you finally grow a brain and realize that civilization is closed until further notice, throw a shopping cart through the window and start grabbing supplies, food, dry, canned, and powdered only, as much as you can carry. When aliens come to Earth en masse, they do not come in peace. Ever. A pistol. And plenty of ammo. Not for fighting aliens, for protecting yourself from humans who decided that they want some of your supplies. Camping equipment, tents, sleeping bags, flashlights, waterproof matches, hand-cranked radios, binoculars, knives, propane tanks, blankets, batteries, and ropes. It's just like a hurricane, only worse. First aid supplies. Let's see, bandages, hydrogen peroxide, pain relievers are priority. Large capacity squirt guns. See explanation on page 130. 4. Retreat to a remote location. Even the biggest alien invasions are limited to urban areas, at least during the first phase. If they're here to eat us, that's where most people are. If they're here to enslave us, that's where our heads of state are. And if they're just dicks, that's where they can do the most damage in the shortest amount of time. You have no business being anywhere near a metropolis area. If you are in a tiny, long-forgotten town that you've been dreaming of leaving your whole life, stay there. If you're a city dweller who drives into the surrounding countryside and makes snarky comments like, "Can you believe people live out here?" Go live out there now. Good remote locations, woods, spring and summer, leafy treetops provide excellent cover, and abundant wildlife provides food when the canned stuff runs out. Caves, fall and winter. There's a reason we live in them for thousands of years. They're easy to heat, they protect you from the elements, and they keep you well hidden. The deeper the cave, the better. Bad remote locations, cornfields. These are probably being used as terrain markers or staging areas for the invaders. Besides, a cornfield is one of the last places you want to be in a horror movie. See What to Do If Your Corn Has Children in It, page 146. Prairies, wide open spaces with no hiding places. Poor career choices for horror movie characters. Surviving a horror movie is hard enough without choosing one of these 99.9% fatal professions. A. Gravedigger, a job that requires you to dig graves in a cemetery alone. B. Polar scientist. Hey, I know. I'll go to the most isolated part of the world, a place where night lasts for 6 months. What a great idea. C. Security guard. If something goes bump in the night, you're the guy who has to check it out. D. Camp director. You're an authority figure who bosses teenagers around in the middle of the woods. It's a shock you lived long enough to read this sentence. Hooker. Prostitution is so fatal in movies that hookers rarely even get the courtesy of an on-screen death. The first time we see them is when our grizzled hero cop is scraping them out of several dumpsters. F. Janitor. Strange. You could have sworn you locked the door to the pool. Why are the lights off? And why does the laughter sound like it's coming from the water? Never become one of these people. You will be screwed. 5. Stay close to the water. If you have a boat, now would be the time to get something more practical than a superiority complex out of it. Aliens tend to ignore the 70% of our planet covered in water. Drive a few miles offshore and wait this whole mess out if you have the option. If you have access to a submarine, even better. If the closest you can get to the water is the puddle that forms in the roof of your tent, fear not. Remember those large capacity squirt guns you looted? Fill them up and keep them close at all times. If you run into a spaceman, you stand a better chance of killing them with a good soaking than a hail of bullets. Alien invasion movies are basically metaphors for man's over-reliance on technology, so it's almost always something primitive that brings the aliens to their knees. Earthly bacteria, bee stings, or water. Zorak. Prepare the fleet. The blue planet shall be ours. Oh, but the blue planet is covered in Kralok. So doesn't Kralok turn our Syndax to Marklar? Good point. Okay, everybody, you hear that? Stay away from the Kralok parts. But you can't just engage! What to do if there are snakes on your plane? Bears on a bus? Sign me up. Meerkats on a sailboat? Adorable. Snakes on a plane? The very definition of terror. Horror movies and airplane movies coexist peacefully for more than a century. Sure, there were a few isolated incidents, a monster on the wing, a psychotic passenger, but they were always minor, focused on an individual rather than the entire plane. That is, until the long-standing truce was shattered. We now live in the Terrorverse, where no one is safe from the painful, venomous death. Thank you for flying American Scarelines. Please don't forget your bags. 1. Recruit skilled passenger. Wait, isn't that step 1? Land the plane? Sure, if you're overland, if you're overland, but guess what? You're not overland. You're nowhere near land, and if by some miracle you are overland, the landing gear doesn't work. Your screenwriter is no dummy. You think somebody sadistic enough to trap hundreds of men, women, and children in a tube full of snakes is going to let you off that easy? The first thing you need is to accept, no matter how tough you think you are, is that no one can survive this ordeal alone. You need help. And lucky for you, an airplane is just the place to find it. In movies, all transoceanic flights have at least one of each of these on the manifest. Dangerous criminal who the government has decided to transport on a commercial flight for some reason. This individual will have street smarts that might come in handy. Federal agents accompanying the criminal, an FBI agent, or an air marshal who will have the guns and training to help you stay alive. Hijacker who is planning on storming the cockpit, diverting the plane, but that was before he was surrounded by cobras. He's probably a retired soldier with some valuable skills, so save your political differences for another movie. Doctor to treat any snakebite victims, and by treat I mean apply a cold cloth on their forehead while they die miserably. Guy who knows a tiny bit about flying, who will be able to keep you in the air after the pilot dies. Usually somewhere in the 30-minute mark. 2. Get high. I'm talking stand on the seat cushions high. Snakes slither across the floor, meaning that's the last place you want your ankles to be. If the plane has 2 passenger decks, a Boeing 747 or Airbus A380, you're better off at the higher deck since the infestation probably originated in the cargo hold. And it'll take more time for the snakes to climb their way up. 3. Cover the floors with mothballs. The chief ingredient to mothballs is naphthalene, which also happens to be the chief ingredient in many snake repellents. So the next time you're boarding a flight and someone asks you why you're carrying on smells like a grandmother's closet, just give them a wink and say, let's hope you never find out. Well, I didn't actually know that. Know your harbingers of impending doom, the bitch. She busts her husband's virtually non-existent balls around the clock, screams at the groomer for putting the wrong color bow in her Pomeranian's hair, smokes in the asthma ward of a children's hospital. She's a bitch, and she's about to die. Horror screenwriters love to throw in a crowd-pleasing kill, and long ago they figured out that nothing brings the audience to its feet like a brutal murder of a disagreeable female. 1. The rich lady who has the dog catcher's number stored on her speed dial. 2. The 5-martini wife who loves to publicly humiliate her failure of a husband. 3. The overbearing mother who doesn't let her daughter out of the house. 4. The head cheerleader who rules her high school with an iron fist. They all have one thing in common. Before the final credits roll, the Reaper will pay them a visit, to the delight of moviegoers everywhere. So if you fall victim to horror movie bitchness, just smile and go on your merry way. She'll be taken care of soon enough. 4. Create a luggage avalanche. Instruct the passengers to open all the overhead compartments. Be careful, items may have shifted. Next, force your way into the cockpit and replace the dead pilot with the guy who knows a tiny bit about flying. Over the intercom, tell the passengers to move into the front 2/3 of the cabin. Next, disengage the plane's alpha limiter, a built-in device that prevents the plane's nose from lifting, and pull back on the yoke to bring the plane into a steep climb. The yoke will begin to shake in protest. Pay it no mind. Back in the cabin, the snakes will start falling into the rear third of the plane, along with all the loose luggage. The ones that aren't crushed to death will have to slither their way through a mountain of Louis Vuitton, buying you a little more time. 4. Unleash a suitcase full of mongooses. Laugh all you want, but the fact is that snakes are the number 1 cause of death in horror movie aviation. Is it really so stupid to buy a little traveler's insurance in the form of a bag full of half-starved mongooses? You can try to bring 2 bags packed with mongooses, but most airlines have a limit of 2 carry-ons, so your other one is already full of mothballs. Please don't put them in the same one. Blow them away! If it boils down to this, no screenwriter or director can resist the chance to do a big depressurization scene. According to movie physics, everything that isn't nailed down can be sucked out of a bullet-sized hole in the airplane's fuselage. No matter how many snakes you destroy, they'll keep on coming until you give the filmmakers what they want. 1. Buckle up and get everyone's tray tables stowed and seatbelts tightly fastened. 2. Lower the oxygen mask. Rest assured that oxygen is flowing, even though the bag does not fully inflate. 3. Shoot one of the windows. Here's where the gun carried by the federal agent or hijacker comes into play. As soon as that bullet penetrates the window, the cabin will turn into a deleted scene from Twister. 4. Get the plane below 10,000 feet, 300 meters. It should only take a few seconds for all the snakes to get sucked out. So the guy who knows a tiny bit about flying should dive the plane to this altitude where the pressure equalizes and there's enough oxygen to breathe. Well, that wasn't such a chore, was it? All that's left to do is sit back and wait for the guy who knows a tiny bit about flying to bring the massive jet in for a smooth landing, despite the fact that he's never flown a real plane before. Go mongoose, go mongoose, go mongoose. The snakes on a plane are no match for a vicious mongoose. 10 wildlife creatures that are always evil. Monkeys. Opportunistic bastards. A monkey would sell its own mother for a stale banana peel. Which is why they're always recruited as spies for the enemy. 2 Rottweilers. Dogs are universally good, except for one. It seems that Rottweilers put their paw print on the contract with Satan, since they're always portrayed as rabid psychopaths or guardians of the Antichrist. 3 Sharks. They're bad enough in the real world. In horror movies, sharks carry a grudge, solve problems, eat boats, and track humans halfway across the globe. 4 Ravens. As birds go, ravens are actually quite pleasant. Unfortunately, they're also classic harbingers of impending doom. 5 Cats. Whereas monkeys are evil because it pays well, cats are just plain evil. They don't need an incentive to sell you out or steal your baby's breath. They do it for the sheer pleasure of being rotten. 6 Rats. Where there's 1 rat, there's 14,000, and where there's 14,000 rats, there's some psychopath using them to murder people. 7 Bats. It's not a bat, it's always a vampire. Shoot it. 8 Owls. Owls have been waging a PR campaign to change their perennial image as the evil creatures. They brought their way into a few family films, playing the faithful friend or endangered species, but don't be fooled. They're cold-hearted killers. 9 Sloths. There's actually nothing to suggest sloths are evil, but seeing as they're the only animal named after a deadly sin, it's probably best to avoid them. 10 Wolves. It's not a wolf. It's always a werewolf. Get the silver. So next, we're going to find out how to survive a space-based horror movie. Thank you guys so much for joining me. You guys are awesome as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye.